In this video, we're going to discuss one of the other frustrating pieces of a table. So in this one, we have a table here, and this is a PrimNG table. It's in an Angular. And what we do here is we're trying to size it to the page. Now, if you notice, these are the same tables we had in the last video, but this one is a little different than I'm going to show you here. So why does it want to go the full width of the screen? Now notice there's a little padding, not margin, but padding. And that's because the main window has a small amount of padding in there. So what we're going to do is we're going to inspect this. So I do the right click on my mouse, click on inspect, and I'm going to come in here and I want to inspect the table. So I'm going to go up here, click on that to get me near the table. And here's the PrimNG table. And what I'm looking for is I'm looking for anything that would control the width. So we've gotten into some variables here down in the root color. So let's go the next one. There's a div, there's the root again with the color. Let's look at this one. Is there anything here? Nope. Let's see, let's go back up to, here we are. Width 100%. Now, that's coming out of the PrimNG layer. I don't know if you can see it on the screen there, but it says PrimNG, and that's the layer. And this is coming out of the styles. So if I turn this off, watch what happens. It jumps down. Now if we scroll, we see also this one. So both of these are controlled by the same piece. So you don't want to override this particular class. You want to leave that alone. Some people I've seen go in and they'll actually spend a lot of time manipulating the original class when that's not the intent here. So remember that width 100% means it will go to 100% of the containing object. So if we go in, let's go back down here, and let's change this to, just play around with it. Let's change it to 80%. So there it goes to 80% of the page, and so is that one. Now, there are different tables. We saw from the last video that it actually has different sizes for the tables. Well, let's go look at the code for this. So in the code, we have, so here's the HTML. I took away the container so I can isolate it to just these two tables. So the container's been isolated, it's been removed, commented out. And then here's the product table, and here's the contact table. So watch what happens when I bring this back in. So this is a container. So let me explain that. So this will go to 100% of the width of its container. The container is this div right here. And product table is what we're going to modify. So if I go back into here, product table, I'm going to set that back to that size. Now if you notice, even here in the small window, you saw it jump. Let's go back to the full screen, and you can see that that table has adjusted its size. Now this one down here, let's go, now it still says 100 width. So if we go here and we look at this, and it was at this one here, table still 100 width. Okay, if we turn that on or off, it's not going to affect it right now, but that's because we have our width set. Let's get rid of the inspection panel. And you can see that this table has not been affected. Let's go back into the code. And let's change that so here we go. If we save this, now we go back to our window and we see that the tables are back to what we had originally. Now, notice the wrapping. We can grab a hold of that. So there's no wrapping and there's no scroll bars like we had before. So we have the overflow X. It's turned on. So if you see here, here's the overflow X auto. So the overflow X, so it goes X this way and Y this way. So you'd have overflow Y if you wanted to have a scroll bar here, overflow X if you want to have a scroll bar here. But why is this not giving a scroll bar? We've defined it. Well, part of the problem is containment. We have a width set, but we need our container. So let's go back into the code here. And we're going to turn back on. We got to go back here, turn this part back on. Turn that on. Let's just look at just that alone, see what it does. So there's no change so far. Let's go back to the code. And now we're going to work on the CSS. We're going to turn on the table again, or the container, with the flex. And now we go back and we see it has jumped back up there. That is pretty cool. All right, and there's our scroll bars. So without display flex, we didn't get scroll bars. So that's something to keep in mind when you're up against a roadblock and it's just not working. You got to think about what impact does the different components have as far as your styling. Now, let's go talk about the spacing on these columns. Remember I said that people use percentages? Well, we've got something here that's flex. And flex lets us do something that's a little different. So if I go back in here, that's that. Let's go to the product table right here. Here's the product table, and we see the code, name, quantity, or category and quantity. Let's go to the CSS. We're going to go in here and we're going to say, we're just going to try something here. So let's say flex 1, and I'm going to remove that, and I'm going to tell this one x1, and I'm going to remove the next line. Here I'm going to say 2, comment that, go down here, and I'm going to say flex 2, and I'm going to remove that. Let's see what this does. Interesting. Now, we're playing with the product table here, and you can see just to the side here, it did make some changes. Now, this, I said 1, 1, and 2, and 2. But look how it spanned. Look how it adjusted itself. Let's try something else. Let's try flex 3, because that's wider. And let's try flex 1 and flex 1. Okay, that really didn't make it. So as you can see, this really isn't doing. So let's just try taking that out completely. See if it has any effect on it. Has absolutely no effect. Why is this? Well, let's talk about this. So here's our product table. This is a flex, display flex, and this right here is a class that has this sizing and everything for this particular container. But in the flex table, let's go look at the table here for a second. So in the table, it doesn't really have anything saying that, you know, there's the header and there's that, and this is just the table itself. So why is that not working? Well, you really need to have the display flex around this. So how can we do this? Well, let's try something. Let's just try flex container just to see what that's going to do. And I'm going to put the same thing down below here. And now I'm going to go back into my CSS here, and I'm going to put that flex container around this whole thing. Okay, and if we go up here and we say display flex, and we go here and we turn that back on, turn that back on, turn that back on, turn that back on. Now we've done it in a way that it should affect the header and the body. The body meaning the data down here and the header. All right, so if I save this, look at that. So it did change that, and notice the space we have here. So I have a flex 1 here in quantity. Let's say category, we want to give it a 2, just to see what happens. Look at that. Percentages is one way of doing it. And then this is another way. What this means to flex is this is 1 unit of flex, 3 units, 1 unit, and 1 unit. So whatever that unit is, it just splits it up. So that's one way of doing it. And then you can go in here and you can say, let's say max width. Let's see what that does. Shouldn't affect anything. Let's make that a 2. Let's see if it affects it. Okay, let's make it a 4 just to see. Okay, the max width kept this 4 from getting too big. So we can leave that as a 1, and that'll be fine. But let's remove this max width out of here. And let's go back to our screen, the big screen, and see what happens. Looks like it's not going to change anything. All right, so this doesn't change anything as far as the spacing. So the flex is this whole thing, and when you scrunch down, oh, notice that it did change it there. And it changed it based on, well, changes it on the lower one as well. Now this one doesn't have flex on the columns. This is still percentages. And this one up here is using flex. So playing around with it, you can discover what works best for you. Hope you had fun.